Hello, my name's Francis Briers, sometimes known as the Rev, and I'm going to offer a spiritual response to someone's question that they've sent in to me today. So the question is, somehow I ended up being handed a bucket of gold and I struggle being able to believe I could just have it and would not need to pay for it later. My soul finds it really difficult to encompass that this has really happened and is a little scared. So I think back and think, well, there have been hard times before I was handed this bucket, so maybe it is all right and I can enjoy it now. But somehow there is this scared corner in my soul. What to do to let my soul open to the possibility of abundance? So I can identify with this, I can understand it, as I suspect many of you can too. This feeling, this idea that this wonderful thing has come into my life and I'm going to have to pay for it at some point, or I should have had to have worked, I should have had to have earned it. And I think this idea is an essentially damaging one. It's common and understandable and fine, because we're human, we're wonderfully flawed, that's okay. And I think it has a history in terms of the kind of Protestant work ethic of the past, perhaps particularly in Europe, where, if you worked hard you were a good person and God would love you and those kind of messages. But I think the mindset that it sets up is not a healthy one, or it's not an optimal one, perhaps. Maybe not completely unhealthy, but it's not going to lead to the greatest enjoyment of life or the most connected relationships, I'd suggest. So I'm not perfect at this myself. Like I say, I can identify with the question. But what I seek to do, what I practice in myself, is to try and have an attitude, to try and embrace an idea that essentially the universe or God or spirit or whatever you want to call it, that essentially the universe is a beneficent place. It means me well. Of course, terrible things happen. That's life. In Christian terms, perhaps, without the possibility that bad things can happen, there would be no free will. We couldn't choose a course in life if God always made sure that only the good things happened. Then there would be no choice. And just as equally, from another perspective, in Taoist terms, good is only created by the existence of bad. A light casts shadow. Without the shadow, we don't know there's light, and without the light, we don't know there's shadow. So we have to find it in ourselves. I work to find it in myself, to accept that there will be tough things in life for me, and there are terrible things happening in the world, and to still embrace this idea, embrace the belief or faith or concept that the world is essentially a beneficent place. Now that could seem a kind of Pollyanna kind of mindset, or a very, very hyper-optimistic mindset that the world is a good place and it's there to help me. But there's a deeper reason for that. In the Hawaiian shamanic tradition, Hawaiian magical tradition called Huna, there's a saying that effectiveness is the measure of truth. So even if you don't have any sense or belief in a kind of one universal truth, if you don't have a scripture or a particular faith path to invest in, think of it in terms of what's most effective for you. Now, I would suggest that the idea that the world is out to get me, that there's terrible things just waiting around the corner for me, that anything that good happens I'm going to have to pay for by something bad happening, that idea is one that will create in me a mindset and a psychology of lack, fear, pain, distrust, and that's not the person I want to be. So if I want to be a trustful, loving person who embraces the world and the people in it, and if I want to do my best to be connected with people and embrace life and enjoy life when it's joyful, then the most effective thing I can do is believe that the world is a positive, beneficent place, that the universe is there to help me, that God is there to support me and love me. So actually, maybe this doesn't need to be a question of subscribing yourself to a particular faith path or a particular scriptural interpretation of if God exists, what God might think or feel. Actually, it can just be a question of how effective is it for you? Is the mindset that you're embracing creating the kind of life that you want? Because if it's not, then choose a different mindset. Choose a different set of beliefs. So that's the wisdom I think that particular Hawaiian path has to offer us, and I think it's really valuable. Effectiveness is the measure of truth. Not meaning that ends justifies the means, but how can I create myself and my life in the way that I want it to be? And to do that, what mindset will best serve that end? So I hope that has been useful to you, you who have asked the question, and all of you who watch this. And as ever, I offer my response with love.